to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm so glad you're joining me today. Today I have a very special guest. In fact, she happens to be my youngest sister. Welcome, Lydia.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here. We've had to reschedule a time or two. She has 3 children, and one of them small, 2-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And they are precious. So I am so excited that she has a chance today to slip into the studio to do a quick recording with me. So I am really excited, Lydia, to find out. She is a fabulous cook, by the way, and she makes lots of delicious menus. And so I'm excited to find out today which one she's going to share with us. She often hosts us on Sunday for dinner. I have another sister in town, so the 3 of us and our families go over, and it's a chance in our busy weeks to be able to stop and all come together and visit as a family.
Each other for a minute.
Yes. Catch up.
Wash dishes together.
Yes. Catch up on what everybody's doing, play with the kids. So tell me.
The kids love it.
Yes. What today are you sharing with us? What's one of your favorite menus to serve when you have people over?
Well, I could go on about food for hours.
We're here.
I
We're
will narrow
listening.
it down to one meal plan. And today I've picked jambalaya for you because I figured, who else wants to talk about jambalaya?
Well, jambalaya is a delicious dish, especially if you know how to cook it.
Yeah. So as a Southern dish, it originated like most Southern dishes where you have a little bit of ham left over, a few oysters, maybe some sauce from something, maybe some shrimp, maybe some crawfish. Get wild. But keep it Cajun.
Maybe some alligator.
That's your tip. Yeah. Some snake.
Oh, dear.
You never know.
Okay.
No, I've never seen that in jambalaya.
I take it back. I don't know if I do want to make jambalaya.
I have, heard of all kinds of things going into jambalaya, but there are the staples. The Cajun Trinity, as some like to call it, which is celery, green pepper, and onion. I may have sneaked some garlic in there on occasion, but usually I stick to those 3. And you kind of cook everything separate, which makes this dish look a little intimidating because you think, I need to buy all these ingredients. And then I have to slice the meat and I have to cook it separately. But really, it doesn't take much time because it's simple ingredients. You can prep it all ahead of time before people come over. And you can throw it together, right before they get there. And it still tastes amazing. So my grandma from Louisiana, our grandma, would probably, might get a little sniffy about the lack of seafood in my jambalaya.
Oh, well.
My husband's not a seafood fan, so I stick to the kielbasa sausage and the chicken.
It's delicious.
And I think that's about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's typically how I've made mine as well.
And lately I've been trying it with stewed tomatoes in it. I think that's the recipe I gave you. Is it stewed or crushed tomatoes?
Okay.
Either one works, but I use crushed. I was trying out a new recipe. That's the one I sent you. Although the staple recipe is from the Southern Living Ultimate Cookbook that is just good, basic Southern food.
And that recipe doesn't have seafood, I don't think.
I don't think it does. Yeah, I think it's andouille sausage. And I usually do kielbasa just because I haven't built my kids' tolerance up to spicy foods yet.
Well,
we're still working on it.
Yeah. Well, 2 to 10, that's pretty tough to handle too much spice.
Yeah. But do yourself a favor and wash the rice before you cook it.
Okay. Tell
That's
us why.
my hot tip. Otherwise, the starches on the rice just make it a sticky glob. And we're not making sticky rice. Okay. We want rice that we can work with, that we can pull out of the pan and mix with other ingredients. And the reason I'm talking about just cooking the rice is because I've started cooking it separately. If you're cooking a small batch of jambalaya, you can put all the ingredients in the same pot, and I love that. I love one-pot meals for the family on a weeknight. If I'm just doing a small batch, that works. But if I want to make it a larger batch, then I pull out my Ninja Foodie and dump a 2-pound bag of rice in there, which makes about 15, 20 servings, depending on how many people the size of the people coming over. Are they kids or are they, teenage boys?
Right.
So once you wash the rice, rinse the water out, rinse the rice again to get it good and clean, and then you fill it back up with water. And this is when I like to dump the Cajun seasoning into the dish. So it cooks in the rice. It really gets that flavor. And then once that's cooked, you have all your other ingredients already assembled, maybe even prepped the day before. And that way, if people are coming over, you can kind of just put it all in a big pot. The ingredients reheat together. The rice is already hot and Cajun-y and has a great flavor coming out of the pot.
What Cajun seasoning do you use? Is it a particular brand? Or does it just say Cajun seasoning?
I just ordered some.
Okay.
So it just says Cajun seasoning.
Okay.
Although I have mixed up my own variety, which is more like a dirty rice. It's not necessarily Cajun seasoning, but it has some of the same flair. So you can put paprika, celery seed, onion seasoning, and there's like 6 spices that I've just worked with that are kind of in that same family that you would find in Louisiana.
Right.
But I've also made a big batch and found out it didn't have enough seasoning on it, so I just slap your mama all over it and call it good.
Right. Which is I don't know, what is that? Does that say Cajun seasoning on it?
It does, but basically it's a blend of peppers,
I know
salt.
Yes. Yeah. I know that Tony Chachere's.
Tony Chachere's. I have used that in the past.
Is Creole the same thing as Cajun?
No, it is not.
I didn't think it. I mean, it probably has some differences to it.
Yeah, they live side by side in Louisiana.
They're cousins.
But not the same exact family.
Okay.
There is some overlap though.
Okay. When you're making it like you said, if you made a smaller amount and you were making it in one pot, let's say you decided, I'm going to just throw my rice in. You would have to add more liquid, right? Because the rice would absorb all of your liquid.
If you pull it out and it's freshly cooked, it normally has enough steam still in it to work with. But I guess if you let it sit and it did get a little bit drier, you can throw a little chicken broth, or maybe that's when you could mix in your crushed tomatoes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds delicious. What do you serve this with? Or is it really just a one bowl meal?
Yeah, it really is. So there have been times where we're just throwing stuff together, so it's been a one pot dish. But if I have a little extra time I'll throw together a salad because I just really like salad. And you can make some sweet tea. Yeah. Oh, and dessert. Let's not
forget dessert.
Apple pie, here we come.
Okay. I'm guessing this might also come from the Southern Living Cookbook.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely one of my favorites comes from the Southern Living Cookbook.
And this is the ultimate Southern Living Cookbook,
so it has
right?
a more wide range of recipes than their magazines or their other cookbooks. So
it is a very
compilation of good ones.
Go-to, and I'm not sure if they've released a more recent edition, but this one I bought back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it still has many
lasting us.
tried and true good recipes in there.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of an overall comprehensive cookbook.
It is, especially if you're not
categories.
sure where to start. They keep it simple, and you can look up a category called family favorites. And let me tell you, they ain't lying.
Okay, so
these are some good ones.
Apple in the family favorites?
Yes. My husband's favorite is apple pie. So I've made it a lot. And we always go back to this crumb-topped apple pie. So you make the crumb crust, smash it in the pan, dump the apples in, and if I have time, I'll throw cinnamon sugar on top of them.
The crust is on the bottom, or the crumble.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the recipe tells you to make a sugar cornstarch kind of slurry and then toss it over the apples. But I don't always do that. We've been getting a lot of fresh apples, and they've been tasting so good, and they've been such a great texture that I don't put anything on top of them. If I I think the last pie I made, I was thinking, oh, these might be a little more tart because they're right off the tree. So I just drizzled some agave syrup and then put the rest of the crumb top on top and put it in the oven. It was a 10-minute process to make the crumble and put it in the pan and get it in the oven.
That sounds like a dessert I can get behind.
Yeah, because I had
that on it.
peeled and
Any
cored
night
the
of the
apples
week.
ahead of time. So it was really easy just to throw in the pan on Sunday and get it cooked.
Sounds delicious. I'm sure this is a hit with the kids as well.
Yes.
Do you serve it by itself, or do you typically have ice cream or whipped cream?
Growing up, just the dessert was served, and we just enjoyed that one dessert. But my husband growing up always had it with ice cream.
Okay.
So he believes
prefers
you
the
need
ice
some
cream on
vanilla
the
ice
side.
cream, to eat with your apple pie. So we do it both ways.
Right. Well, and then I guess people also could have a preference with or without ice cream, but when it comes piping hot from the oven, some cold
So I
ice
like
cream
it
next
just
to
plain.
it is
But
yummy.
my husband loves apple pie and ice cream.
Yes.
They go together. And speaking of, he lived at the big house for a few years, and Leslie Wilson has the most staple, quickest, best apple pies in her cookbook. And I think it's just called the Big House Cookbook. You could probably order it from their website. But she has been feeding hosts of people, big groups, for years.
Now, this is a
40
boarding
years?
house or
Yes.
like a house for college kids to
Right.
rent rooms
Yeah.
from?
Yes. So they've been doing that for the past, I guess, nearly 40 years. And
Wow.
so she's had lots of experience, and these are recipes that she has worked out over the years.
I can imagine, because do they have a group meal every night?
Yes. To her,
That's amazing.
every meal is like people coming over for dinner.
Right. Yes. Especially because you're feeding adults.
Right.
You're
Yes.
not, you don't have a mixture of small children thrown in there. You're feeding, you're having to have a good sized portion for each person.
Yeah. So her apple pie recipe is the one that I go back to, even if I'm just making a crust for a different pie. I'll be making pumpkin pie and need a quick crust recipe. So I'll look up her apple pie recipe, make the crust real quick, and it's great.
So that's your favorite apple pie, and this other one from Southern Living is your favorite apple crumble?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good to know.
So, yeah, a couple of good tips.
Yes, for sure. Do you, well, you mentioned when I was going to ask about time savers or ways that you make it quick, you said you prep sometimes the day before. You can make the jambalaya ahead of time and then just do the rice the day of.
Yes, or I'll start earlier in the day. Like I'll slice up the sausage, brown it in the pan, and then throw the vegetables in. We'll take the sausage out, then put the vegetables in. Kind of keep it separate, and that way everything is a little bit more crisp. Last time I made the mistake of putting everything together, adding too much liquid, and then the rice was soggy and the bell peppers weren't necessarily cooked. They were a little too crispy. And that's because I was trying to make a bigger batch and overcook the rice.
Okay.
So I easily overcook rice.
Well, if
I
you
get
throw
distracted.
it into your, what was it, your Food Ninja?
Yes, my Ninja Foodie.
Or Ninja Foodie, that's similar to an Instant Pot.
Yes,
I guess
and it
just a
cooks
different
it
brand.
Perfect.
That
Every
might
time.
that might keep it from being overcooked because you get distracted because it's on a timer.
Yes, exactly. And we grew up with brown rice. So I usually stick to brown rice or jasmine rice. I've cooked white rice and it just gets mushy every time.
You like jasmine better than basmati? I know there's. I looked it
I
up
do
one
like
time. I
basmati.
did research,
Yeah,
and
it's a little bit
talked
firmer.
about the differences and different ways, or different ways that each one of those might shine in a dish. And then I've totally forgotten.
And it went
Like, okay, which
out
one
the
was
window.
which?
Yeah.
I think I currently have jasmine as well in the pantry.
Yes. Basmati is good. Yeah, that's a solid choice. Seems to remain firmer, which I like.
So typically with jambalaya, I serve a white rice, which would be maybe a jasmine rice. But do you typically with this one serve a brown rice, or do you just take whatever's in your pantry?
Yeah, the latter.
Whatever's in your
You know
pantry.
me. I
Okay.
cook by what I see.
have
That's going to be dinner now.
I have a funny story about a rice cooker. So my oldest son, when he was off at college, he came back for Christmas break, and he had this backpack just loaded full. You know, going through an airport, you can have a backpack and maybe one small carry-on. I don't know. And he snuck it off to his room, and I thought, you know, it's just loaded with all of his clothes and worldly goods. So Christmas morning comes, and, well, I'm not quite sure that he wrapped up his backpack. He probably took out what was inside his backpack and wrapped it up somehow. But I open up this rather large and bulky item from my oldest son. I cannot possibly imagine what it is. And it is a rice cooker. He had gone to Costco with the family that he was rooming with, and they had all done some Christmas shopping, and he saw this rice cooker.
Oh, fun.
He took it back to his house, and he unboxed it and shoved it into the bottom of his backpack.
He's like, my mom cooks a lot of rice.
Piled clothes on top and all around it, and snuck it all. Flew hours upon hours through countless, multiple airports to bring me a rice cooker for Christmas. I
great.
used that thing for years.
Till it cracked and died.
So thoughtful. It was such a treasured possession. Yes, I loved it. And then all of a sudden I was like, how in the world have I not had a rice cooker?
Yeah.
Because you can just press the button and walk away. This is amazing. And make a large amount and not have to have a burner on your stove taken up when you have multiple other pots going. So anyway, I do recommend a rice cooker. Although now, the Instant Pot or what you mentioned, the
Does the same thing because it pressure
foodie.
cooks it in, depending on the type of rice. For white rice, it's 1 minute is what you set the timer for.
That is
and it takes a little bit to
wild.
heat up, maybe 10 minutes.
And that's on the pressure setting. They have a
Yes.
rice setting, which I'm not sure how, that may not be pressure
yeah.
cooking.
On mine,
It
I
might
just
be more
pressure
of
cook it.
And I guess those instructions are probably in the...
Oh, yeah. And if it's brown rice, it
instruction
takes
manual.
maybe 15 minutes.
Which-
for jasmine, it's 3.
That is wild. And
That's
but I
great.
guess you have to factor in a little bit of time for the pressure to build and then release.
Yeah. So I'd add
That's-
an extra 10 minutes or
Yeah.
something.
But still, when you look at a bag of brown rice and it says 45,
Right.
you can really
You're
cut
still
the time
cutting
down.
out time.
Especially if you're in a hurry. So, okay. Tell us your best cooking prep tip. Like, do you have a favorite cookbook, or where do you look for inspiration?
So it's funny. I spent years as a new mom Googling things on Pinterest and trying all these new recipes that everybody swears, this is the best you're going to find. And after several years, I went straight back to my cookbooks and went, actually, these are the staples. So the Ultimate Southern Living. I have the red checked Better Homes and Gardens cookbook. So these are all from 90s.
For sure.
The 90s.
Better Homes and Gardens may even, they have lots of editions,
Right.
but that's the one I have.
Girl, I was looking through the Cotton Country collection cookbook
which
last
is,
night.
what is that, an old church cookbook?
Yeah,
Like a
and
church collection?
Think of Cotton Country. So we're talking about Louisiana.
Actually, it may not be church. It may be more of like a club, like
Maybe
a
that was
civics
it,
club, or I'm saying the wrong thing.
Are you
but it
thinking
seemed
junior
like
league or
Junior
something
league.
like that?
I wonder if it was a
Yeah.
junior league collection where they sold it for a
Could be.
fundraiser.
Could be. Although that reminds me of my best chili recipe. That's what I used to make for people coming over. But the last time that we had a family over and I made my Texas chili from the junior league recipe and cornbread, in the cast iron skillet. Pull
Sounds
out
good
some
so far.
popping hot cornbread, some really good chili. And I'm thinking, ooh, this is good. And I look around the table. The children are just sweating and looking wide-eyed at their parents like, do I have to finish
Was
this?
it really spicy?
Well, I live in the north now, and I did not think it was at all. But they were also children, so that was my hint that I should tone it down. and switch to something that you can add spices to later.
Right, right. Have it on the side instead of in the dish.
Kids seem to like rice, so it seems to work out pretty well. And that way they can, if they're feeling a little picky, they can just eat the meat. And my kids like shrimp, so I will add shrimp sometimes just at the very end, so it's only in the pot for maybe 2 minutes.
Sure.
And then we can serve it with some extra hot sauce and Cajun seasoning.
Right. You put
for the
all
adults.
the extra on the side for those who want it spicier. Mm-hmm. That's a good idea.
And you can garnish it with like some chives or green onions or, whatever you have in the pantry.
We're talking about jambalaya, not chili, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I am switching thoughts.
No, that's
back
okay.
to rice.
We're going back to rice and jambalaya.
And I just love rice. I mean, we grew up eating rice pretty often. And it was always brown rice.
It's very economical.
It is, and filling.
Yes.
And we would come home from school and be like, Mom, I'm so hungry. And she's like, well, there's some leftover rice in the fridge. And so I would warm it up with a slab of butter and drizzle some honey. Mm-hmm. And it was a great snack.
I've done rice with butter, or maybe, I don't know if I added butter, but peanut butter and honey.
Oh, yeah.
That was something back in the day.
Yeah.
I haven't done that in a while, but it was, sometimes I did that for if there was leftover rice for a breakfast.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, it's similar to oatmeal, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I always do with oatmeal is peanut butter and honey or molasses.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you bring a book to tell us about today?
Well, this is An Everlasting Meal, Cooking with Economy and Grace by Tamar Adler. And our sister Esther recommended this book, so I knew I had to check it out.
It looks like you have the library copy. Is it one that you need to buy?
Yes, I found this copy from a library that they were getting rid of off of abebooks.com.
Okay.
So I did order it
is
because
yours.
I just wanted to look back and have it as a reference guide because she does post recipes in it. She spends a lot of time talking about food, which speaks to me because I can spend a lot of time really thinking through the food and what things go together. And that's kind of just how I cook. I open the fridge in the morning and look around at what needs to be used and say, how can I turn this into dinner?
Right.
And that's, similar to jambalaya. You kind of just pick out a little bit of leftover this, a little bit of leftover that, and you can make soup. You can make something similar to chicken pot pie. You can put rice with it and have jambalaya. You can do all kinds of meals for your family that will, feed them and comfort them. I actually made a recipe last night from our mom, and my kids just loved it. We all loved it. It was the ham crepes with the cheese and the cream, and so good.
Oh, yes, that's definitely a favorite.
But in this book, Tamar Adler talks a lot about just how we think about our food and using all of it. So it really inspired me to pay more attention to what I was throwing out, because those scraps of vegetables could be turned into chicken stock, vegetable stock. The scraps of chicken can be turned into chicken stock. You can, take the remains of one meal and turn it into another meal. Like leftover rice, you can make a whole bunch of it and eat it for a snack the next day, or turn it into another meal, or add it to soup, or toast it up, kind of like rice balls, and have a crunchy snack. Put it on top of soup like a crouton.
I've never done that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so she has a lot of good recommendations like that.
So does she have chapters where she talks about it and then gives you a recipe, or does she just have chapters and at the end have some recipes?
And it's in categories. So she talks about, bread at one time, certain vegetables, and then she'll give you a recipe, and things that go together too, like maybe a chutney. These things go together to make this, or a verde sauce. So
okay, I'll have to check this book out. From
I feel like every mother needs this book.
Okay. Well, and
Because
finding
it really
used, I'm
helps.
sure it's very inexpensive.
Yes, and right now with how much food costs, she really is helping me cook with economy and still making it a graceful meal and something that my kids enjoy.
Yes. And
Which is
just
huge.
ideas on how to make things go a little further. Like you said, if you have
Yes.
something you can turn into another meal or the beginnings of another meal, that
Yeah.
does help save money.
And not being afraid to just try, try putting something together that maybe you haven't before.
Yes.
Here's a little excerpt for you. I have spare but sturdy recommendations for beginners and lots for picking up loose ends. Stale slices of bread should be ground into breadcrumbs, which make a delicious topping for pasta, and add crunch to a salad. Or they must be toasted and broken apart for croutons or brittle crackers, which ask to be smeared with olive paste, which is something I've never made.
Never made olive paste either.
But she has a recipe for that too.
Okay.
She is a chef, so there are ingredients that she talks about that aren't easily accessible to me, but the idea remains with me. You can smear a lot of things on toast and just really enjoy it with relish.
Yes. Okay, this may not be leftovers. I'm not sure if it counts as a hodgepodge and really being creative, but yesterday I made the most amazing lunch. And my youngest teenager loved it, devoured it.
Good.
And
I
it
must know.
it was so simple. All it is make a piece of toast. Once it's out of the toaster, put mayonnaise on it, and then sprinkle it with that everything but the bagel seasoning.
Oh, yeah.
A pretty heavy load because it's lots of different things. It's not super salty, but it gives you a touch of salt. So sprinkle the mayonnaise with the bagel seasoning. Put some avocado on top, kind of smash some avocado on top, and then some bacon bits.
Oh,
and
you're making some
sliced
avocado toast. I like it.
cherub tomatoes. I had cherub tomatoes, so I just sliced some teensy little tomatoes all over it, and we ate it open-faced. Delicious.
That sounds good.
So good. But anyway, yes, I felt like I was just grabbing things, willy-nilly out of the fridge. An avocado that was getting overripe. We need to use this somehow. Avocado toast is nothing new, but just as a reminder, it's a really delicious lunch.
Yes. I'm bad about buying avocados and then forgetting about them in the
This one was on the
fruit
verge.
basket.
This
Yeah.
one was on the verge. I'm like, son, you have to half it with me.
Yeah.
I can't eat a whole one, so we're having half each on our avocado toast. And he was a little skeptical, and then he started eating it. He's like, this is really good. I think that everything but the bagel seasoning kind of set it over the top.
Oh, yeah. That is a great recommendation.
And bacon bits.
That would be better than some of the vegan avocado toasts around town.
Vegan avocado toast. What is that?
Similar to what you're talking about.
But no bacon.
No bacon.
No bacon.
No.
Not as good.
Smashed avocado on toast,
Okay. So, what is your best advice for showing warm hospitality when you do have guests into your home? How do you make your home welcoming?
Something I've found is that when people arrive into your home and you're scrambling around trying not to ignore them, but you still kind of are, that doesn't give off maybe the most welcoming vibe. And sometimes you just have to do that. You have to finish up the last few remaining tidbits and you can still be friendly. But I really have found that if you prep ahead of time in the day, and even if that means you get ready for the day and 9:30 in the morning you're looking in the fridge, you can still pull things out and start chopping them up. You can have your meat sliced. You can already have it browned and sitting on the stove ready to go by 2 p.m., And then once your rice is hot and you put it together, it really doesn't take time away from your guests. And I was realizing I was doing that a little bit just because there was still prep to be done. And when guests arrive, I like to engage with them right off the bat, offer them a beverage to drink. When I say that, feel like Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory because his Texas mother was always like, Sheldon, you need to offer your guests a beverage. If someone's feeling sad, offer them a beverage.
Oh, she's not
So,
wrong.
yeah, there you go. And we usually have the array of beverages, you know, the coffee, the tea, the beer, the wine, the cocktail. When somebody comes over, see what, you know, is going to be.
See what they want to start with.
Yeah, good for them. Or I may pair a beverage to my dinner. And if I've done that, it's usually pre-made or pre-mixed, or it's a bottle of wine. So I say, would you like a glass of wine? But that way I at least have something to engage them with right off the bat.
Well, that's a great idea.
Show them I'm glad they're there.
Yes. And so, yes, if somebody's standing there with a drink in their hand, you can still talk and visit,
Right.
even if you're finishing up the last few
And
items.
that way I feel like once they have that drink in their hand, they're automatically a part of what's going on.
Yes.
They're not just on the sideline waiting.
It does help me. I think there's different personalities out there, but it does help me to have most of it done ahead of time, because once guests come in, I don't know if it's because I've gotten older or what, but I made a joke last night. We had company, and I made a joke like, I cannot talk and think at the same time.
Yeah.
Because after we prayed, and then I had people start going through the line, and then I was standing by the stove, and I happened to look over at a table, and a couple of young ladies had sat down and had their plates in front of them, and all they had was bread and salad. And I was just like, what?
What did I do?
I realized I told them to go through the line, and here I am standing, blocking the view of the stove, and there's the big main dish and the vegetable sitting on the stove. And I had meant to just take it and put it on the bar. We had this big bar that we were serving from. And of course, I was talking right before the prayer, and then we prayed. And I'm like, y'all go through the line.
Yeah, I stopped talking fast.
Meanwhile, the food is sitting right behind me on the stove.
That's funny.
So I laughed, and I said, girls, come get back in line. I promise I'm not feeding you just bread and salad. They're like, well, we just thought this was what we were starting with.
Yeah, it's a good start right there.
Like, no, really, we're putting
do
it
it in
all on one
courses.
plate today. So for me, when the guests come in and I start chatting and all of that, I better have it pretty good and ready, because I'll completely forget
Same here.
what's going on.
That was another reason I wanted to have things prepped ahead of time, because I went to visit with the guests, and usually I have to turn around and ignore them for a minute to think through what I'm doing. And part of that may be because I don't normally follow recipes, so I can't just read it right there. I actually do have to think through it.
You do loose interpretations of
I
recipes.
do. That's why my jambalaya has changed so much over the years.
Well, when you perfect
Several
it,
times.
then you need to actually write it down so the rest of us
I
can
do.
follow it.
Yeah. I think I'm leaning more towards the dirty rice version.
Okay.
Where it just has a lot of seasonings, and the rice does not get mushy.
Okay. Well, you'll
stays
have to
firm.
share your perfected recipe with us so that we can
Yeah.
recreate this delicious menu.
Well, I learned that Arkansas is a leading export of rice. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because my daughter did a state packet for school.
Okay.
And her state was Arkansas. So we learned a lot of cool facts
Interesting
about our
facts.
native state. And that was one of them.
But they grow rice.
Yeah.
That is so
There is
interesting.
so much rice is grown in Arkansas, and that is part of why it was so easily accessible for us growing up. I remember using rice flour to make biscuits and eating rice as a snack. And our sister Esther, who lives in North Arkansas, she was telling me about a friend who wanted to make authentic Thai rice. So she orders online,
Right.
from a Thai store, waits for it to get shipped to her house, this long-awaited Thai rice.
From Thailand.
From Thailand.
Shipped
And
across
she
the ocean.
plops it on her counter, scoops out some rice, and as she's doing so, notices the bag says, "Product of Arkansas."
Wow.
So
That is
authentic
so
Thai rice
interesting.
grown in Arkansas.
Wow.
Yeah.
That they
thought that was pretty
pulled
funny.
one over on the Americans with that one.
Yeah. So then I had to run and check my bag of Thai rice that's jasmine rice, and apparently jasmine rice was actually grown in Thailand, or
Okay.
so the bag said.
Right.
But I was a little skeptical at first. Like, is
Thought
this just from
it might be from Arkansas? Well, I'm sure the Arkansas version was just as delicious.
Well, yeah, it's for us.
Okay, what is your must-have kitchen item, and where can we find it?
Well, I already told you about my Ninja Foodie, which my husband was gifted to me because he knew that I would use it all the time. And I have obviously cooked rice in it a lot, and taken frozen meat right out of the deep freeze and plopped it in there and had a roast that night.
Wow.
An hour and a half, 2 hours later, it's tender, hot,
Really?
perfectly cooked.
This is on the pressure setting?
The pressure, yeah. So it's a pressure cooker, but it also has like the bake, the saute, the yogurt feature, all the different features. But I mostly use the pressure cooking to save time. That's why I love it.
What size do you prefer?
Oh, I just tried to find the biggest one they make from Costco.
Right.
So it's, I don't know, probably 8 quarts or so.
Okay.
Maybe 12 cups. Maybe it goes by cups. I don't remember exactly.
But if you're serving a crowd, or if you have, you have still 3 kids at home that are growing and only increasing in appetite, then you want something you can create an entire meal in.
Definitely. So I've made curry, soups, beans. It cooks beans and rice perfectly. Yeah, without making it mush.
Well,
that's something else I'm good at, either undercooking or overcooking.
The beans.
Yes. Beans and lentils. I'm good at making them mushy.
That's a great tip to explore ways to use a pressure cooker.
Yes, and I've had our Vitamix for 11 years, and it's still going strong.
They are expensive, but it's because they have a real powerful motor in them, and they last for a very long time.
Yeah, over a decade apparently, because we have not had an issue with it, and still make smoothies. And actually, last night I made crepes, blended it up, and
Costco,
3 minutes flat.
10 years ago, they weren't selling them, but now they actually have a version in their store. I know before they used to do like those shows for the Vitamix where you could buy it, but you had to happen to be there on the time. You can order it online as well, but I did happen to notice that Costco does sell a version of the Vitamix.
That's where we got ours.
Online, there's lots of different choices. I don't know. I'm not sure what the differences are in all of them, but it is a very good, high-quality blender.
Definitely. It has gotten a lot of wear.
So the Vitamix, you mentioned using it for ham crepes. And this is our mother's recipe. So you do make obviously you're not going to Vitamix. There's blend the ham. There's ham and cheese, but there is a sauce, which is delicious. What else do you use it for?
So she was great at making these 2 just comfort food dishes all the time. She had a chocolate mousse that she started adding mint to, just some peppermint. It was delicious, one of our favorite desserts growing up, and she would make it for company all the time. And she would also make ham crepes by hand. I use my blender so that I can have...
and then you can just pour the batter out of the blender. Like once it's blended, you can just stand by your stove and pour a little bit as you make the crepes.
In the morning, I will put all the chocolate mousse ingredients in the blender and just and then pour it into cups, stick it in the back of the fridge to chill, so that by the end of the day, when people are over, I can just pull it out, dollop with whipped cream, and serve that for dessert.
That sounds like an instant dessert.
It takes like 5 minutes, and it tastes so much better than a box of chocolate pudding.
So what recipe do you use for that? Is that our mom's recipe, or is it a different one?
She does have a really good recipe, but I have started using the Bon Appetit recipe from, I think it's the green cookbook, the Fast, Easy, Fresh. They also have an orange cookbook, but I believe it's the green one. And it is fast, and it is easy.
And it's fresh.
Yeah, and you dump some chocolate in. It takes about 5 minutes to blend it up in the blender, pour it into cups.
What a yummy dessert. I love chocolate.
Yes.
I'm
and
sold.
you can add peppermint. It's delicious. And then once
Just a
you
little
wash
peppermint
out
extract.
I actually have essential oils because I feel like it gives it a more real peppermint flavor.
And you probably use just a drop on that or two. I mean, because they're very concentrated.
For a whole recipe, maybe 5 or 6.
Okay. You can probably taste it and see.
Yeah. I like it minty.
And I'm sure with essential oils, there's different grades. So I would make sure you'd get a food grade or a high quality one.
Definitely.
Because there are some that are sold very cheaply, excuse me, more for like maybe just diffusers.
Right.
And they probably have things
more
mixed
for
in.
Aromatherapy. Yeah.
They probably have things mixed in with them if they're sold really, really cheaply. The 100% essential oils, the real high grade, high quality ones are pretty expensive.
Yeah. But they last forever. I've had the same bottle for so long. And I make peppermint mochas and around Christmas time and stuff.
You can make them stretch because you really just need a few drops.
Right. So once that's in the fridge, then you can wash out the blender, put the crepe batter in the blender, whirl that up, and just pop your Vitamix in the fridge until you're ready to cook them. And then you pour it out of the blender, you stand there. That's the whole process of it, is just standing there, kind of like pancakes,
Right. Do you have a crepe pan? Because there are crepe pans, or can you make it in a regular, maybe a small to medium nonstick skillet?
Right. That's what I use. Yeah. I don't have it's just my egg pan, nonstick egg pan that I use and love. I think it's called like Green Pan or Green Chef or something because it's ceramic. And then in a separate pan, I mix up the filling with the ham and the cheese and the cream. Butter.
Delicious.
Yum.
This isn't exactly low calorie, but you need to try it.
Oh, but it is filling and just speaks to the soul.
And a favorite with kids.
Yeah.
How can you go wrong?
And for company.
Ham and cheese wrapped up in what looks sort of like a yummy pancake.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And with company, you want them to be leaving your house feeling fat and happy.
They would definitely feel a little bit pampered with some crepes and chocolate mousse.
And it doesn't take as much time as one would think.
Right.
I got home at about 4:30 last night, started making ham crepes. They were out of the oven before 6.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, another menu to put on my to-do list.
Definitely.
To make list.
I just have to be able to stand in front of the oven the stove and actually pay attention to what I'm doing.
Not burn the grapes.
Yes. If we're having a fussy day, that might not happen.
But do you mean a fussy day for you or the 2-year-old?
Yeah. Yeah. We try not to share fussy days.
Right. If he has one scheduled, then you have to man up.
That's right. I have to put mine off.
Oh, good times. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me today and for sharing all your delicious menu and all of your prep tips.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Prep ahead of time.
Well, sounds good. Good.
Save yourself some time in the long run.
Right. That's true. That's true. If you think of it ahead of time, then at the end you're not quite as frazzled.
Yeah. Well, I have the same amount of time in every day. I just have to decide where I'm going to put things in that day. And
right.
If I'm picking up kids from school, that's not when I'm chopping up vegetables.
Right. Okay. Until next time. Bye.